Hi, everyone. This is Gary Wilson, and welcome to this week's live webinar for the Investor Agent Training Program. And some of you have gone through the Flipping for Profits, and some of you have gone through Rental Profits, those training programs. So welcome aboard, all of you. Well, good news is we got a great mixture of folks here tonight, some new, some veterans, different parts of the country, and with different backgrounds and experiences. So I want you to chime in. Use the question box to let me know what questions you have. Also, if you have anything to add. And I appreciate those of you who participate regularly and add to the program. It's a wonderful thing, and it helps everybody out. So, okay, quick introduction. For those of you who are new, welcome aboard. Obviously, this is a live event. It is being recorded. Right now, everybody's muted because it's hard to keep things under control when you got 50 to 100 people with live live microphones. We just use the platform the way it's delivered, which is you use your question box to type in questions. From time to time, I will actually unmute a couple of you if it looks like a conversation is warranted and everybody gets to hear it live. Okay, so when you log in, always let me know that you're here. Just say, "Hey, Gary, I'm here," and also let me know that you can see me, see my screen, and hear my voice. Okay. Now, a little bit of a review here, so you know where we are. These are obviously we try to not pre-plan these as much as possible. These webinars are for you guys to raise questions, have a lot of open dialogue, Q&A, and it helps to have you post the questions to me via email ahead of time. You can post them here live. There's no problem with that. Okay. And where we are right now, we're actually in the final night in a couple regards. We're in the fourth week of a 4-part series that's designed to give you instruction on how to set up your own classroom. Okay. Now hold that thought for a moment. We're also in the last week of all of our marketing that we've been going over since late January. We started this in late January, and we've been going through the marketing campaigns one by one. We brought on some special guests, our web developer for one, one of our admin people, Jody. We've had her on. We've had Beverly on, who's basically customer service, but also gets involved with marketing. So you benefited from all 3 of their experiences and knowledge, which is great. So if you're new, once you get access to the membership site, I highly recommend you go back through all of the old webinars. There's probably over 60 of them by now. They're all recorded. They're all cataloged by subject matter. Okay, so you can pull down and study any marketing campaign you want to at any time, and they're downloads such that you actually keep it on your computer. You can keep it forever. Okay, once you're in the program, you're actually considered a member, and you own it. You own the material. Okay. Now, prior to the end of January, at the end of December, the week before Christmas and New Year's, we went back to the beginning of the training program and started going over the material basically one section at a time. We went through module 1, we went through module 2. I don't believe we did anything on module 3. We can certainly do that if you guys like. And then we jumped right into module 4, which is all the marketing, and that's what we've been doing ever since. In any case, I highly recommend, once you're going through your material on your own, of course, this is designed to have you study on your own. I suggest you go back and look at all those webinars, pull down the appropriate one, and reinforce your learning experience. Okay. So now back to this current series. This is the 4th in a 4-part series on how to put on your own classroom. The first one, which was now 4 weeks ago, is the basic intention there is to show people how to use the school report, the melissa-data.com, and your planning commission websites. This is you and your clients working together to figure out how to determine the best area, the best neighborhoods in the best areas, and the best properties in those areas. Okay. So the other part of the first session was we got into the mechanics of flipping. You know, what are the steps you actually go through when you determine if a property makes a good flipping candidate? We didn't get into all of the remodeling and all that kind of stuff. We'll do that in separate sessions. The basic concept here is you want to get your clients into the game, swinging a bat when it comes to purchasing flips. Okay, you're basically showing them how to use the forms to determine what is a good flip and the calculators and so forth. Okay, that was module 1. Module 2 was designed to show you how do you instruct people who are buying rentals. So we looked at the calculators briefly, some of the forms that you fill out, and went over the process that you go through, the 12-step process that you use when you're working with people buying rentals, in other words, landlords. And yes, we did that also for the first module when we went over flipping. We went over that 12-step process. We're going to actually review those tonight, just briefly, okay? So that was module 2. Excuse me, the second week in this 4-part series. All right. The third one was last week, which was where we taught you how to put on the class when you're covering wholesaling, basically assigning contracts. That was last week. Now, last week I tried not to get into a lot of detail on the mechanics of wholesaling because, again, the intention of this is to show you and guide you through the process of putting on your own classroom where you do instruct people on how to wholesale properly, legally, ethically, and every other way. Okay, that was the third class in a series of this 4-class series. All right, tonight we're going to go over, basically do a review, okay, of how you've gone through the first 3 modules, how you prepare for this 4th step. The 4th step is unique. This is where the rubber meets the road, and this is where you actually are going to help your clients physically look at properties in person and make offers, okay? So we're going to get into the mechanics of that. I'm also going to get into a little bit at the end how you actually market yourself, how you market this 4-week series on learning the mechanics of investing. Okay, these folks are going to be prospects in the beginning, and they're going to become clients by the time you get through this 4-week series. All right. Now, real quick, let me check for questions before I dig into the material. Let's see. Oh, that's somebody logging in. Hi, Sherry. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. And welcome aboard. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. In regards to wholesaling, Alabama does not allow net offers. What is the other version that we can use? So, Randall, that's what we're going to go over tonight. Net listing is a process that's allowed in states like Florida and Pennsylvania, but not in states like Alabama and Virginia, for example. Every state can adopt the rules their own way. So generally you learn that in your licensing classes, but if you're unsure, you just simply call your 800 number for your state's board, okay, and they'll tell you. They'll give you the actual language surrounding the subject. So we don't get into net listings here tonight. We're just going to talk about the final stage of this 4-part series. So in any case, Randall, if you want to listen to last week's recording, and it'll go over the basics of wholesaling, not net listings, okay? So in any case, by the way, since you've mentioned it, what's interesting is 2 states right now are actively working on legislation to ban wholesaling, okay? So in any case, keep an eye out for that because I got pretty good a feeling if New York and Ohio do pass this, and I think that they will, eventually it's going to spread all around the country, and most states will probably adopt it over the next few years, and you will likely no longer see wholesaling, which is ironic because people are still teaching it. In fact, I teach it. I'm required to teach it because it's still a viable method for investors, even for you guys as agents, okay? So in any case, back to tonight's subject. Okay, you've had your first 3 classes. Now you're in the 4th session, all right? And what you want to do in the 4th session is you're actually going to be setting up a day like a Saturday, for example. So in other words, you're having your classes always on either Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday evenings. You do that for 3 weeks straight. This is your 4th week. You pick the night, either Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Your students come together, okay? And you're going to first review everything with them that you did the first 3 classes. All right, just briefly. Don't spend a lot of time on it because they should have been doing their own homework at this point. But what the basic intention of this night is, this 4th night is, you're going to have your computer there. They're going to have their computers there. And you're going to actually walk them through the process of property selection using the tools that they've learned, the tools you taught them and the tools they've learned, okay? You're going to go through, in fact, I'll just show you. You're going to start off with the school report. At this point, you should have created your school report. Okay, I won't go into that detail tonight because that's part of Module 1. All right, you're gonna show them the school report so they can see areas that make good sense for flipping homes in the case of flipping. Like I would say, these are good areas right here. You know, there's properties are selling, properties are actively listed, and you've got a good price range, 150 to 300,000. Okay, and you know your school district, all right? So you start there, and once you know your school districts, you get your zip codes. There's a number of tools you can use to get zip codes. Then you go into your melissadata.com. If you're brand new, guys, just don't worry. You're going to get all this in Module 1. Some of you have seen this in the actual classroom. If you haven't, don't worry about it. But Melissa Data allows you to plug in the zip codes for the school districts that make sense, and you grab all of the carrier routes, and you can tell how many properties are in the neighborhoods. You can tell the average home value. Okay, so this helps you narrow your search down by price range. Okay, price range within zip code, within school district. Okay, so you're narrowing things down. Then you're going to validate everything with your Planning Commission website data. That's what I'm looking at now. These are all pages from a Planning Commission website. Okay, every area has a Planning Commission website, every county and every municipality. So don't worry if you don't understand this tonight. You're going to get it in Module 1. I suggest you review it and practice it so you learn it, because you're going to review this in the beginning of this 4th class. You're going to go over all this, okay? Now, once you've done that, the next thing you want to do is these folks, throughout the prior 3 classes, you've had people approach you and say, that's great, I love this, and can I go ahead and start looking at properties? You're going to have them already set up on searches, okay? In other words, through the first 3 classes, every one of your students at some point through this prior 3 weeks should be set up on the MLS for their first searches based on the criteria that they're interested in. You know, the flipping or renting, okay, one of those 2 subjects, or wholesaling if that's what the case is. They're also going to understand. You're going to know what areas are best for them because they're going to use the school report. Remember the school report right back here. Okay, hang on one second. It's coming up next. There you go. Using the school report, they're going to know what areas and what price ranges make the most sense for them. So they might choose to be in the lower end, 150 to 2, or in the higher end, 250 to 3, for example, in this case. All right, but basically set them up on their searches ahead of time, because what you want them to do is come to class with their computers and the results of their searches. All right, and then you're going to apply the methodology to help them go through and determine the most likely, the properties that are most likely to return a profit. Now I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit and show you in Module 2, if you haven't already got it, don't worry, you're going to get Module 2, the rules of engagement for working with people who are flipping homes. Okay, we're not going to get into all that detail here tonight, obviously, but you will have gone through this with your clients, all right, by the time you get to this 4th class. But what I wanted to show you is this here. Remember, this is going to be on page 51 of your training material. This is Module 2, page 51, and you're going to look at the step-by-step instructions for working with people who are flipping homes, all right? And what you do is you follow this process. You go through this process with your students in the class. You have them go through and narrow down from broad to narrow. Now, they should have already done this ahead of time. You're just going to review this in this 4th class with them. In other words, after the 1st class, the people who are interested in flipping will have gotten their first listings using the tools to do the analysis after you've gone through this 12-step process with them, okay? So you take care of the flippers first, get them reviewing their material, reviewing the properties, and making sure they did it correctly, because there's no way you're going to look at 50 properties. You're going to look at the most 6 properties, 6 flips, for example, okay? All right, so far so good. You do that, you get your flippers up and running, okay? The next thing you do is the people who want to buy rentals, okay, you've got to make sure they go through the same process. And melissadata.com in the training material gives you a page that's a good example of an area, good example of a zip code that has a lot of rentals. So again, they're going to prepare, the people buying rentals are going to prepare the same way that people are flipping homes are going to be preparing. All right. And I'm just skipping through all the material here that you have in your training material. What I want to do is get to the 12-step instructions for working with landlords. Okay. By the way, if Saul is on the webinar here, Saul, in your training material, here's an example of an opportunity evaluator filled out. So it's in your training material. You were looking for a sample, and here's one for you on page 78. Okay. But in any case, back to the people who are landlords. You're going to go through this process with them. Remember, they already will have done this in the second classroom. They will have already gone through the process of property selection. You just want them to bring their results to the class, and you're going to bring this up and do a quick review to make sure they did it correctly. Again, because you're not going to look at 50 properties. You're only going to look at 6 rentals, all right? So in any case, essentially what you're doing is you're getting your students engaged, having them practice what you preach as they go through the program, okay? So they're really getting on-the-job training. They're actually getting trained while they're learning, and they're practicing what they're learning while they're training. And when they get out on the road here, which is going to be coming up next, I'll explain this here in a moment, they're going to use what they learn and put it into practice with real properties, okay? But so far we've gotten through the first 2 parts. The third part is when it comes to the wholesalers are typically either going to focus on rentals or flips. They can do both, but most cases people will focus on one or the other. And you want to make sure that whatever it is they're focusing on, and I would tell them that they can do both if they want to. They can find properties for investors who are flipping. They can find properties for investors who are buying rentals. But it is easier administratively to have them focus on one or the other, but don't stop them from doing both, okay? It's just the challenge is they're going to have to prepare for both. They have to go through this whole effort for both types of investments, all right? If that's the type of wholesaling they want to do, all right? Now, so far, so good. You're in the classroom. You have them bringing up their properties. They should all come there prepared with about 6 properties. Now, if you have 10 people who are flipping and 10 people who are buying rentals, that means you're going to have a total of about 120 properties. Okay? Now, some of them will have the same property. They will have selected some of the same properties, and that's okay. The bottom line is you're going to have plenty to choose from, all right? And what you're going to do at this point, guys, is you're going to put them all up on a board and compare them side by side, because you're going to narrow down. Let's say you end up with 40 properties amongst the 10 people who are buying rentals, okay? They all brought in 6, but there's overlap on about a third of them. So 2/3, about 40 properties, look like, according to these guys, are going to make good candidates for rentals. What you do is you literally go through side by side, compare them all right? You compare the first one to the second one, and you eliminate the one that you don't think is going to be any good. You can put them all up on at the same time. You can share them all and look at them all at the same time, but I'm telling you that's more difficult. It's always better to compare 2 or just a few properties at a time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at the most. And what you're trying to do is, for all those 40 properties, is narrow that down to somewhere between 6 and 10 properties. Go for more like 8 or 9 or 10, because the reason is you're going to have to make arrangements to see these properties, and you might not be able to make arrangements to see all of them on the date that you're going to go look at them. So you want to select more than 6. You want to set the goal to view 6 in person, okay? But in order to do that, you may have to select 10, because through process elimination and not being able to meet schedules and so forth and so on, you want to end up with 6. So you come to that process by comparing, and you do the same thing like that you just did here with the rentals. You do the same thing with the flip properties, okay? You don't want to look at more than about 12 properties in a day, because everybody's going to be pretty whipped. You could even break it up into two tours. Go out in the first half of the day, look at the 6 for the rentals. Go out the second half of the day, look at the 6 for the flippers, or do one on one day and one the next day, something like that. Whatever you're more comfortable with. There's no real guideline there. There's nothing that tells us one way works better than another. The bottom line is you're going to have people interested in flipping. You're going to have people interested in rentals, okay? So in any case, you do that review process. And the reason you're going to do this in the classroom, guys, is you're going to have your students do the work. It's not that you're lazy and you don't care, but if you do all the work, they're not going to learn anything. You've got to actually have them practice what they're learning as they're going through the training, okay? So in any case, you come up with your final set of properties. Now you've got to do a little bit of legwork here. One of the things you've got to do is you want to make sure you have a lender lined up to work with you on this project, all right? Now, before we get into that, let me do a quick pause here, and let's check and see if we have any questions. Okay, so far so good. Excuse me. All right, let's make sure you catch up on your notes here. So give yourself another minute or two to catch up on your notes, and I'll get right back to you in just a second. Okay. All right. So at this point, you've had your classes. Each class, you've had your students go through the learning curve and practicing with real properties, helping them, they're doing property selection. You come to the fourth class, you review everything, all right, and you narrow it down to their short list of properties. Now, at this point, you've got to prepare for the day out in the field where you're going to actually go look at all these properties. One of the things you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get a lender on board, and you have to just use one lender at this point. We've had people try it, bringing in multiple lenders because they had 20 people going to look at properties. It ends up being not a lot of fun and a little bit chaotic, and not a good idea. So I recommend you bring one lender. Now, obviously, you want to select a lender who is familiar with investor properties and is also investor friendly. And banks will change from time to time. In other words, you may be able to go to a certain bank or a handful of banks to get loans for your clients, or they're going there to get loans for themselves, that is. And all of a sudden, the bank kind of closes down on you. It has nothing to do with you. What it is they've got too many loans outstanding on a certain type of property, like duplexes. When they have too many duplexes on their books, they stop lending money on duplexes, okay? They'll lend money on 4 units. They'll lend money on single-family homes. They'll lend money on garages and storage units and things like that. But they have buckets, and when a bucket gets too full, they can't keep putting more loans in that one bucket. So in other words, have multiple lenders. We'll get into more of that in Module 6, but the bottom line is you can always tell a lender who's ready to make loans based on their advertising. So a bank that's saying in their advertising, come open up a checking account and get a free toaster, they need to bring in deposits. They're not really actively making a lot of loans right now. Whereas the banks who say, come get a home equity line of credit and we'll waive the application fee, that bank is in the process of making loans. They're well capitalized, and they need to lend out their capital to make money on it, okay? So, and to find investor-friendly banks, one of the best things you can do is use the small local banks. Do not use the big banks. Don't use Wells Fargo. Don't use Bank of America. Don't use Washington Mutual. Don't use any of those big banks. The small local or community banks are the best banks to use for getting investor loans. They're the ones who are most likely to be investor friendly. And if you're ever not sure, just go visit them and say, hey, I've have clients who are routinely buying rentals. I have clients who are routinely flipping homes, and we'd like to bring business your way. Do you have an appetite for investor loans? And they'll tell you, right up front. So in any case, that's the best way to find them. Each area has different, obviously, because you're using small local community banks. It's going to be different area by area. So let me check questions here real quick, because I know that this subject usually raises a lot of questions. Let's see. This is Alyssa. Hey, Alyssa, how you doing? Hey, Alyssa, I left you a voicemail the other day. At least I hope I had the right number. If you could, shoot me a message. Let me know when we can get together for a one-on-one. Tomorrow may be a possibility after, say, 1 o'clock your time. Okay, from 1 o'clock on your time for the next, so like 1 to 4 your time should be a good time. If you'd like to do it, if you're ready. If you're not ready, don't worry. Okay. So let's just ask, can you recommend lenders? So we kind of just covered that, Alyssa. you first want to look at the banks, see what kind of advertising they're doing. Okay, you can go online, Google them, you can look in the newspapers, see what kind of ads they're posting. Start with the ones who are advertising, home equity loans with no application fee. They're actively making loans. All right, start with them. You could also go to your local investor club meeting, your local RIA meeting or ACRE meeting, and you can go for free typically for the first time, and go to the vendor section to see what lenders are in the vendor section and ask them for some material and just ask them questions. Hey, what was the last investor deal you did? How many investor deals do you do on a monthly basis? Things like that. And you'll find out, you'll get several of them will be there. Okay. You can also ask other investors, who do they use? And they'll tell you. Okay. And because you can imagine with 3,000 counties in the U.S. and provinces in Canada, there's a lot of banks there. They're all local community banks. And if you're ever curious, Alyssa, just shoot me what you got, and I'll help you take a look at it, and we'll help you figure that out. Okay. Okay. Russ Smith is asking, how about working with a hard money lender? Russ, you can do that, or your clients can do that. I typically don't like working with hard money lenders. I know some investors see that as the only option they have in the beginning to get started. I get it. I know what it was like when I first started, but there's some inherent risk with hard money lenders. They call it hard money for a reason. It's the terms are usually very hard. Higher interest rates, a lot of points up front, very strict time frames. If you're flipping a home and you're using a hard money lender to purchase the home and remodel it, they're going to give you a 6-month window. Now, that might sound like a lot of time, but I can tell you 6 months is going to go by fast, and a lot of new investors, they're doing everything for the first time. So remodeling projects go over budget. They go over schedule. They go over time, and the hard money lender, they're not going to really care so much about what hardships you're going through. They're going to give you essentially one get out of jail free card. They'll extend your loan for a certain period and a certain term. But if you don't pony up by the time that's due, they could call in the note. They could seize your property. They literally could foreclose on you. And they always have what they call confessions of judgment in their paperwork, which means you've predetermined that if you can't pay up and you can't meet their demands, that you give up the property. Okay? So I'm not saying it always works out that way. Some of them actually work out, but a lot of them don't. Also, in the case of rentals, if you can imagine, you're basically leveraging yourself up to your eyeballs, because most people try to buy it with no money down. And then they have high interest rates, which means now not only do they not have any equity, they also have no cash flow because their mortgage payments are too high. And those are the people who lose their property. So what I recommend to most people is, if you're struggling financially, just leverage your license. Generate cash flow with your license first. Get in the game of working with investors, just like you guys are, okay? And get some cash flow going, get some valuable knowledge, and then eventually get your own property by putting down 25% and getting a bank loan at 4.5%. And they'll do it because you'll have probably a year under your belt of steady cash flow, okay? But in any case, most cases, our investors are going to be using cash, or they're using like an equity loan against their own home or other properties they own to make the down payment or even purchase the property, and then they'll do the rehab, and then they'll sell it, okay, and pay off the credit line and so forth. Now, in the case of a rental, you can use that process too to buy a rental, and then once you've maybe done some remodeling and rented out all the units, then you can go back and refinance that and pay yourself back, okay? So that's kind of an indirect way to do a no money down process, is use a equity loan against some other properties to purchase the new one, and when the new one's all up and running, put a brand new first mortgage on that. The lenders actually like that because you already own it, it's already up and running and in service. In the case of rental, obviously showing an income, and at the time you actually have no liens on that property. You don't have a mortgage on that property. Remember, the home equity loan you used is leaning another property. So anyway, sorry to get off on a tangent there, but that's an excellent question. And I know that comes up a lot because a lot of your investors are saying, I'm going to get a hard money loan. And I don't think they fully understand or appreciate all that means, So, okay, let me check for more questions here. Alyssa says, I'll try after one. Okay, Thanks, Alyssa. That sounds great. All right, back to where I was. Let me find out where I was here. Arrange for a lender. Okay. Also, you want to have an admin person with you, if at all possible. Now, if you got a small group of people, like 10 or fewer people, you can handle this on your own. You and a lender can easily handle this. But if you got 20 people going to look at properties, you're going to need some help. You're going to need an admin person, so you can pay somebody $10 an hour to come support you that day and manage all the paperwork for you, so you can be basically the rainmaker. Okay. Sometimes you can find somebody from your office, a new realtor who needs to get started and are struggling, and just say, I'll give you $100 today if you come and help me out, or give them $150, whatever you want to do. Because here's the deal. You're going to also, by the way, before let me get into this real quick. You're going to have to arrange either for a carpool. In other words, your clients are going to have to follow each other from house to house. That can be kind of cumbersome, but if you've only got 5 or 10 people, that's probably the most cost-effective way to do it. Also, you can all meet at your class location in the morning and have them team up and carpool. So maybe you have 10 people taking 5 cars. That's easy. That's manageable. If you're going to have 20 people, you might want to rent a large van, okay? Or I think maybe the capacity is 16 now. Yeah. So 15, 16 people, you can get a large van. You can also rent a minibus that'll handle 20 to 25 people. We've actually had students go out and have to literally rent the large full-size buses, tour buses, okay? Several $100s, usually about $400 a day. But here's why you're not going to care, because what I was getting ready to tell you a moment ago, this is one of the best programs you could ever execute in your business, because all of these students, remember, you're going to get in your classroom, you're going to interview them, and you're going to qualify them, pre-qualify them. So make sure they've got some savings, they've got an available business line of credit, they've got a good credit rating, okay, so that they can actually pull the trigger and take action and follow through. All right. Now, what that means is when you go out looking at these properties, let's say you look at 10 properties. Don't be surprised if you actually sell 5 of them, possibly even more, literally in one day, okay? And so that's why you want to have your lender with you, because your lender is actually going to qualify them right there on the spot. The lender is going to have their computer with them. They're going to qualify them. Your admin person is going to help people fill out sales agreements, okay? I recommend you take your computer with you, and even a scanner if you have one, and you should. You can have a portable scanner. If not, your lender will likely have one, because you can literally write the offers, have them write their hand money check, their earnest money deposit, scan it and make a copy of it, have your lender produce the qualification letter, and now you could submit your offers electronically to the listing agent right there on the spot. Some of them will happen that day, some of them will happen that night, some will happen the next day. But the bottom line is this: you have to be prepared. So you definitely want to have somebody support you on this day, an admin person. You want to have your lender there, and make sure you arrange well in advance, like 4 weeks in advance, your bus or van if you're going to rent one. And if it's a small group, make sure all your students know to meet at the classroom wherever you've been teaching, and have them carpool, okay? Any case, let me check for questions here real quick before I get going further, because I want to make sure I get everything in. Okay. All right. Next thing is this. You have to make the showing arrangements, okay? So let's say you have your class on a Tuesday night. If I was you, I'd start calling on Wednesday to make your showing arrangements, okay? That's why you always want to have your classes on either Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursdays. Fridays never make a good sense for a class anyways. But if you have it on Thursday night, that essentially gives you one day to make arrangements, all right, for showings, because you're always going to show these things on Saturdays. You can show them on Sundays too, but remember, on Sundays you're competing more with the open houses and things like that. Now, again, you can break this up. You can show your rentals on Saturday and your flips on Sunday, or vice versa. You can break your group up into 2 groups. It just means you have to go out twice. Your lender has to go out twice, and you got to have an admin person you're paying for 2 days. I like going out all in one day. Okay, I've even done it where I go out in the morning for the landlords, and I go back and regroup and go out in the afternoon with the flippers. Nothing wrong with that. It's just whatever floats your boat. But if you've got a large group of people, like 20 people, and 10 are flippers and 10 are landlords, you're probably going to have to break them up, okay, until you get a lot of experience doing this. Okay, so make all your showing arrangements and always confirm them either the night before or the morning of, because stuff happens sometimes, all right? All right, so make all your showing arrangements. Now, let me check. I got a question here. All right, why would you not go out on a weekday? You definitely can, Rhonda. But what we discovered over the years is even though you're working with a lot of people who own their own businesses and so forth, and they can make their own schedules, trying to coordinate everybody's schedule during the day on a weekday is a lot more difficult than doing on a Saturday, because they own their own businesses. One guy can take off on a Thursday afternoon, another guy can take off on a Monday, and you end up going back and forth for weeks before you finally get consent. And then almost always you lose people. So you're far better off doing this on a weekend. I know it's not, doesn't fit our usual protocol, but that's why I like doing this on Saturdays. And by the way, you're not doing this every single week. This particular event is only occurring once a month. You do this literally once a month, okay? So you're only working one Saturday a month, for example. Any case, so you got your showing arrangements. Okay, now a little bit of protocol here. All right, always bring lots of copies of your forms, your rehab forms, your cash flow forms, your analysis forms, all those forms. Bring a bunch of them. And I mean, you want to tell your clients to bring them with them. They want to bring their own forms, but inevitably people will only bring a set of one, or they won't bring any, or they'll forget, or whatever. Always be prepared and make sure they all have them. Have them raise their hands in the beginning, and don't just say, "Hey, I got a bunch of forms. You guys ready?" Because we'll take them. Ask them first if they had their forms, and the ones who don't, then you can say, "Here's a couple extra here." Okay. All right. Give them all the forms. Now you're going to your properties. Okay. This is you're now out on the tour. You're the tour leader. You go to your first property. You have them fill out all the forms. You have them take the pictures. You have them do the analysis. You have them fill out the cash flow calculators. Okay. All you're doing at this point is you're simply being a guide, a consultant, an advisor. All right. But they're the ones doing the work. They're the ones doing the analysis. And if you follow the steps from module 2, then you'll know that when you get to the properties, you're going to go around the outside first. You're going to look at the roofing, the siding, the windows. You're going to look at all the landscaping, any fencing if there is any. All right. Always look at the outside first. Of course, the grass, if there is any, the yard, everything. Then you go on the inside. And on the inside, you always focus on the systems first. HVAC, plumbing, electrical. Okay. Those are your systems. And then you focus on the money rooms, essentially kitchens and bathrooms, okay? And then finally you focus on the living room, dining room, bedrooms, and so forth, and then, of course, if there's a basement, right? You do the analysis in that order, because if you start going through a property and it's going to need some big ticket items like a new roof, new kitchen, whatever, at least you've looked at them in that order and you can pull the plug on that property before spending too much more time. If you determine it needs three major repairs, three major construction items, generally speaking, that spells trouble, and it's going to be trouble for you and your clients. So I would recommend moving on, okay? Hopefully that won't be the case, but it does happen. But remember, the bottom line is your clients are doing all the work, not you, okay? Now, you go through all the properties. You do that one by one by one. All right. Now, as you're going between properties, as you're driving between properties, and here's why I really like you guys to get a shuttle or a van yourself and get everybody together in the same shuttle or van, because now you have more control over the crowd. And what you're doing between properties is saying, okay, guys, let's review this property. You've got 5, 10, 15 minutes between properties when you're en route. Have them go through the notes, compare notes, fill in the gaps, okay? And each time you come to a subsequent property, let's say now you're on your third property, you can say, okay, guys, we've got an extra 10 minutes before the next property. Let's compare the last one with the first one. So you can already have them go about figuring out the pecking order. What's best, what's worse, whatever. All right. What you're doing is you're getting them to play a larger role in the process of the decision making. All right, which is what they should do. And here's the best part of all. As you can imagine, you're going to get offers on these properties. All right. And on average, you're going to get offers on half the properties. You definitely want to take the offers that day. Anybody who's ready to rock and roll, they'll say, nope, I'm ready. I want to make the offer. Let's write it up now. You have your admin person help them out, have your lender qualify them. And what happens here is if you have multiple people wanting the same property, you can do one of two things. You can say, you know what, it's first come, first serve. Or you can say, we represent you. We'll submit all the offers to the seller. You keep your offer information confidential. They're going to keep it to themselves. Obviously, you're going to know because you're their agent. And you can submit multiple offers. It may seem kind of strange, but believe it or not, it happens and it works. Because you're not going to tell, if there are three people that are making an offer on one property, you're not going to share the offer information between between those three parties. That would be ridiculous. And not only that, it'd be inappropriate. So you submit your offers, you let the listing agent present them, and come back with the counters and so forth, and you work your way through that normal negotiating process. But the bottom line is you can still do first come, first serve, but so what you do is you just determine whoever writes their offer first, that's the first one submitted. Second one gets the second one submitted. Third one gets the third one submitted. Do it in that order, in that pecking order, okay? But at the end of the day, you should have half of those properties, offers written on half of those properties, okay? At the end of the day, you can do a final roundup. Don't ever just say, what a great day. You guys let me know if you want to do anything more. Always make sure at the end of that day, okay, this is really important, you never leave the scene without a follow-up plan for each individual person. They've either made an offer that day or they're telling you they're going to make an offer that night. So you make plans. Okay, I'm going to call you at 9 o'clock tonight. Or they say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I've got to go to a wedding tonight or something, whatever. You make sure you set a definite plan, definite time to follow up with them. You take the lead in that role. Okay, because if you don't, it's too easy for people to kind of just, change their mind, disappear, get caught up in something else and lose track of it and forget. All this stuff happens. You've got to take full advantage of this opportunity because it's one of the best ones you're ever going to have. Okay, let me do a quick pause here and check for questions before I get into the next subject. So hang on one second. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so far so good. All right, I want to step back for a second and talk about how, you understand now the mechanics of how to carry out this 4-step process in holding classes for your clients, okay? Again, I know if you're brand new, you haven't seen the prior 3 webinars. Just you'll get them when you get the membership login information, and you can download them then and listen to them one at a time. And this will all make a lot more sense. If you've been on board for the last 4 weeks, you already know what you're supposed to do and where we're going with this. Now, to get the whole thing kicked off, here's what I recommend. Always do a basic workshop first. Don't ever attempt this classroom scenario unless you've already done a workshop. Just a basic workshop, just like the one we talk about when we're in the classes that I teach you guys, okay? The reason is it kind of lays the groundwork and gives you the building blocks for forming a classroom. So 2 things here. When you have your first class, before you kick it off, you obviously want to invite people. So what I recommend is this. Always invite current clients. You don't have to invite them all, but let's say you've been at this for a couple of months and you've already got, a dozen investors you're working with. Invite them if you want, all of them if you want, or only select ones. You can determine which ones you're going to invite. Maybe somebody just bought a property and they're not going to be in the game for another 6 months or something. That's fine. You can still invite them. They'll get a lot out of this, okay? But always start with people you already know. Invite them first. Current clients, current investors, okay? Now, once you've had your first workshop, you're comfortable with that whole scenario, and maybe you're doing your second class, you do this, and 3 months later you do it again. We recommend you do this, by the way, 4 times a year because it does take time, but it's a great way to build up really loyal clients who end up being repeat clients over time. But in any case, Once you're comfortable with the technique, then what you can do is add in meetup.com on the front end. So you still invite your current clients, but then you create a unique group on meetup.com. And again, that's a whole other subject that we talk about on another webinar. I'm just going to refresh your memory here tonight. But use meetup.com to create a group, a meetup group for your class, okay? And you're going to create specific keywords and key phrases that Meetup uses to go out and spider out and find other Meetup groups that have matching keywords or key phrases, and notify all those members of your pending classroom that's coming up, okay? So you'll get new clients this way, and they'll come in to your class. You'll have some new clients, and you'll have some of your existing current clients, which is a great mixture because the current clients will befriend the new guys and make them feel a lot more comfortable. But don't do that. The last thing I just described there, guys, using Meetup, don't do that until you're ready for that. Don't do it until you're comfortable, because it's, believe me, having 10 people in a classroom is one thing. Having 20, 25, 30 people is a whole new matter. All right. It takes experience to be able to do that. And at that point, you're going to have support anyways. You're going to have help. You're going to be teaching, and you might want to have somebody roaming the room, helping the students out, helping them fill out the forms and so forth, okay? So that's that. I just want to give that to you, a little bit of pre-marketing. Very easy, very straightforward. Of course, you can use Facebook. You can use LinkedIn. You can even use an email campaign for your current clients. Use any combination of all those things. What I just gave you here is the basic stuff that'll get you probably the most clients anyways. I wouldn't spend a lot of money on marketing anyways unless you really feel like you have to. So in any case, that's the first thing I want to share with you. Second thing is this. The very first time you do this, unless you're a real pro, if you're a former teacher or you've done some adult training before, or let's say maybe you've been doing a number of workshops, you've been doing them for 6 months or a year, you're comfortable with the workshop, go ahead and do a full-blown classroom. But if not, keep it to 10 people, okay? Keep it to 10 people. And here's a really neat concept I want you to grasp here. Let's say you do your promotional efforts and you just want 10 people because that's your comfort level, but 20 people indicate that they want to participate in your class. What you do is you tell them, we've already got the 10 people. You're welcome to sign up for the next class. Go ahead and set up your next class schedule going out, whatever you want. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Again, we recommend do it at least every 3 months. It creates a sense of urgency and scarcity and makes it look like you're a real go-to person, and they will be more, it raises the value of your stock, so to speak. They're going to be more likely to definitely want to work with you. They probably even will beg you, hey, can I please just get in this class? Whatever. You can do whatever you want at that point. I'm just telling you, it's a great way to create demand for your classes. All right. All right. That's the next thing I want to give you. The last thing is this. You know, a lot of you are probably wondering, what else can you do to help your clients out? What other material can you give them other than what we provide you? And the answer is, you can really help them a lot. You know, for every subject, we have a unique book out there. So you can get the book Flipping for Profits. All right. You can get the book Rental Profits Without the Pain. You can get the book Turning Rental Problems into Real Estate Profits. That's on property management. And of course, we have a book on wholesaling. Now, the book on wholesaling is not yet been published. You have access to it because you're all students. And by the way, all of those are free to you because you're current students. Get those books. I mean, you can order them online if you want. It's going to cost you, I think, $4 or $5 for the Kindle version, and I think $10 for the printed version. If you want to do that, go ahead and purchase them. And I think there's a coupon code we can give you to only have to pay, I think, shipping and handling. If you want physical books, and by the way, I do recommend that. Bringing in physical books is a great way. So on the first class, the one on flipping, you bring in the book, Flipping for Profits. Bring in 10 of them. It's only going to cost you, I think with the coupon code, it's only going to cost you $50, $5 a book. Give them out to them, okay? And the next class on buying rentals, give them the book on Rental Profits Without the Pain, same thing. And the third class, give them the one on wholesaling. What it'll do is it'll give them a lot more information and detail on the subject. It'll help further substantiate and basically strengthen their learning experience and enhance it. Okay. Also makes you look like a pretty good person because you're giving them information that they don't have to pay for. All right. So I would write that down. Make sure when you're ready to do your classroom scenario that you contact us and let us know that you want to do that and you want those books, and you determine if you want the Kindle version or the printed version. Again, printed version is always going to go a lot further than the Kindle version. It's just basically that's what we're seeing. Now you can have them take our training program. So if let's say you get into your class, you get into flipping, and you had 3 people come up to you and say, you know what, I appreciate this, but I feel like I need a lot more. Or let's say you get them through the 4-week class scenario. You go out to look at properties and they're like, I'm just not sure. You're going to have people who are going to be, hesitant. They're afraid to pull the trigger. If they ask about it, or you can promote it, say, look, you can take a training program that focuses specifically on flipping. You can take a training program that focuses specifically on buying rentals, or specifically focused on wholesaling. You get them signed up for one of our training programs. Remember, you get a marketing fee of $250 each time you do that. So there's real financial motives, incentive for you guys to do it anyways. What we want to do is make sure that they have the opportunity to take one of those training programs should they choose to do so. And some of you have actually taken the programs yourself. Some of you were actually in on the development phase of some of those programs. So you know that they work. They work really well. It's the same principle as this, which is experiential training, practicing what we preach as you go through the program with real people earning real money. It's like on-the-job training, okay? So the best classes we've seen people do are the ones where they actually do show up with the printed versions of the books. People love that stuff. It's good information, and they'll remember you for it. They're not going to know who I am. They're going to remember you because you're the one giving the book, okay? So in any case, let me do a quick pause here. I want to make sure we have room for questions because I gave you guys a real handful tonight. Again, this is the part 4 of a 4-part series, okay? So let me do a quick check here and see if we got questions. Hang on one second. All right, I think we are caught up here. So in any case, guys, if you do have questions, now's a good time to shoot them out there. Let me see a show of hands or type in your question box. Who here would like to put on their own classroom scenario for your clients? It doesn't have to necessarily be now, but I just want to find out if this is something you're interested in doing. Can you see yourself doing this in the future? Because I can tell you, it is an awesome, awesome way to generate clients and generate revenue. Oh, hey, Rhonda, by the way, Rhonda, I did actually speak to Mark Rickard yesterday. He's going to use some of my recorded webinar material for his RIA group tomorrow night up in Santa Fe. I told him about you, and he said he's more than happy to help you out. You just give him a call anytime. I tell you what I'll do is if you want to look him up on KW White Pages. If you can't find him, just let me know, and I will shoot you his information. I don't want to do it on the webinar here because I don't know that he wants everybody to have it. But he said he definitely would. I'd be more than happy to help you out. Okay, he's an awesome guy, and he's a rock star. Let's see. Terrific. Let me go back here. I lost the. Why did that? Hey, Rhonda, I'm not sure why, but your statement just disappeared there. It looked like you said you'd already looked them up. In the system, for some reason, just dropped it. I have no idea why. So let me know what you were saying there, Rhonda. If you need me to get you his information, let me know. If not, I'll assume you found him. And just give him a buzz. I wouldn't call him tomorrow because he's going to be kind of busy with his RIA group, but call him Friday. Call him on Saturday. And he's a perfect example of KW culture, So, okay, guys, it's just about 8 o'clock here, and that's the agenda I had for tonight. I wanted to give you a real quick heads up here. In another couple of weeks, let's see, let me just tell you this. In June, probably the 3rd week of June, around Wednesday the 15th, perhaps, we're going to have a special session for you guys. We have the community site up and running. It's not public yet. We've been testing it out. Some of you are going to be called to be beta testers, and the site's going to allow you to enter a profile on you yourself. It's based on a map view, so people look at a map of the U.S., and if they want to invest in Redlands, California, or Whittier, California, or Huntsville, Alabama, they're going to see your little symbol there on the map, and they're going to click on it. They're going to see your profile. They're going to get all your contact information. They're going to be able to contact you. Okay. Now, the good news is this: because you're a current student, this doesn't cost you anything. It's just part of the program. But it gets even better. Investors are going to get free access to it, and they're going to be able to look out there to find properties to invest in anywhere in the U.S. and Canada, and also find you wherever you are. You could have people from Cincinnati looking for you in Atlanta, Georgia, for example. Okay. And what you want to do is you want to post all your properties for sale. Okay. Even if they're not your listings, ask the listing agents if you can put them on this website. And remember, you can always advertise HUD homes too on the website. So put your profiles out there, put properties out there, because these people are going to be looking for properties and looking for agents who are trained to work with investors. So in any case, we're going to have a live demonstration on that. I'll keep you posted. I just want to give you the good news. We finally got it up and running, and you guys all get it for free. So I'd like to know what you guys think about it once you said. I think it's pretty awesome. So that's coming up. Also, my schedule. I'm going to be in areas that I haven't been in before for the next couple of weeks. I'll be in, let's see, Illinois. I'm going to be in Wisconsin, and I'm going to be in Minneapolis, and I'm going to be in Iowa. That's in the month of June. So for all of you who are currently in the program, that doesn't help you because I'm not going to be back in your areas. But I will tell you, in July, I'm going to be in, let's see, I've got to go back to Twin Cities, Minnesota for one more week. But then I've got New Jersey for a couple of weeks in July, New Jersey and New York. So if you're anywhere in New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, eastern part of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area, and you've been through the program and you're putting on a workshop or a classroom, remember, all you got to do is let me know a week in advance. And if I can make it, I'll come and show up and actually stand up and speak for 5 minutes if you want. Okay? So keep that in mind, guys. In the meantime, I appreciate you participating in tonight's class. I appreciate all the questions. I hope that you guys will take this and use it and profit from it, because it's probably one of the best things we've ever put together. And we have a lot of students who go crazy with it. We have students that actually take out as many as 4 buses at a time. It's amazing. Okay. All right, folks. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the week here, a beautiful Memorial Day weekend. If you're in the U.S., if you're in Canada, you just celebrated a holiday on Monday. But God bless you all, and we will see you all next week, which, by the way, is going to be next Thursday night on the 2nd. Okay. Good night, guys. Bye-bye.